Hi, welcome to Creating Sustainable Communities Through National Service Work. I'm Ashley. I'm here to tell you about how you can create sustainable communities through service work. I am really excited to be here today. I am sure that I'm going to say this several times, but I love to talk about service work. You can always reach out to me. I'm happy to give advice on pursuing service terms, and I know at least one person who served in every program that we'll talk about today. I'm also going to talk a lot about programming, and I just want to say that I'm super passionate about programming. I'm super excited to hear what y'all are working on and what you need help with, and so you can contact me at any time. My email is listed on this slide. It's also at the end of the slide deck if you missed it. So what is national service? National service is a pretty scary sounding title, but it actually just refers to a few different and very cool programs. I'm sure you've heard of the Peace Corps. That's a national service program. There are several other programs that are also national service, including Americorps. The next few slides are going to be a quick introduction to what these national service programs are, why they are so cool, and to give you a little bit more information. I know I said I was going to talk about sustainable communities. We're going to get there. But first, we have to be on the same page of what I mean by service work. While we're here, I'd like to mention that I don't work for or represent any of these programs, but I was so deeply impacted by my year with Americorps that I passionately share information on national service wherever and whenever I can. I'll be talking more about my own experience and how I created programs on sustainability while working with diverse organizations later. So I'm going to talk about three of the most well-known service programs, and one that specifically focuses on environmental stewardship. Each of these programs have different focuses, requirements, and benefits. If you're interested in doing national service, then understanding these benefits and goals is immensely beneficial to you. So this is a short video from Americorps. It's one of my favorites, and it explains what Americorps is and why it's important.
So you have questions about Americorps? Well, you've come to the right place, because we're here to help. First off, let's clear up one thing right away. You might be wondering how to say or spell Americorps. Sometimes people pronounce the P, but don't make that same mistake. Americorps is alive and well, just spelled with a silent P. So think of Apple Core or Core of the Earth. Now that we have that clear, what exactly is Americorps anyways? Americorps is simply Americans of all ages and backgrounds dedicating their time and skills to get things done. There we go. So how does Americorps get things done? More than 80,000 Americans across the country join Americorps each year, and all of them are tackling different problems in different ways. For example, Americorps members help families attain affordable homes. They mentor students so that they stay in school. Perhaps there is a tornado, a flood, a forest fire, or a hurricane. Americorps members also help communities recover from disasters. There's so many more things that Americorps members do, but if we said it all, we'd be here all day. Why do we call them members, you ask? Americorps members spend anywhere from 3 months to a year dedicating their time and skills to serve. They can volunteer with nonprofits, schools, public agencies, and community and faith-based organizations. And in case you were wondering, there are a few perks Americorps members get, including money to pay for college, student loan deferment, training, living allowance, health benefits, and job opportunities with leading employers. Not too bad, right? All right. What's the purpose of Americorps? Like the military or the Peace Corps, Americorps is a way to serve your country. Americorps members make Americans safer, stronger, and healthier, and they strengthen our communities. But above all, Americorps members get things done. That's it. That's what Americorps is. Learn more about Americorps at americorps.gov.
So now that you know how to say Americorps, you can learn about their three main programs. These programs are made up of the Americorps Network, which is state and national programs, the NCCC, which stands for the National Community Conservation Corps, and VISTA, which stands for Volunteers in Service to America. A quick note about serving in Americorps. You'll need to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. There are also some other requirements, but we'll talk about those later. So let's start with state and national programs. State programs are directly supported by your state. This means that they support the grant funding for the program, and although the site you are at might have several positions or more sites throughout the state, they will only be in your state. National programs are larger programs that are supported by grants that fund National Americorps, or programs that span geographic distances. This means that you'll likely have coworkers all over the US and a strong network to rely on when you transition into your new role as a National Americorps member. The reach of these programs varies by the organization that hosts them. If you're looking to become an Americorps member, a lot of the positions you'll see are funded through the state and national program. There is no national age restriction on serving with state and national programs. However, programs have their own requirements, so it does vary a little bit. Some programs, for example, want you to be 21, others want you to have a bachelor's degree. Some college required, so you could take a gap year. It really depends on what the organization needs from a service member. So the NCCC is probably the most commonly known program. It's the program that I think of, or used to before I served, as Americorps. It's a residential team-based program where you apply to the program, you go through an intensive interview process, you're selected based on the team dynamics and the other people who interviewed, and then you're assigned to a location. So there's actually two ways to serve with NCCC, the traditional Corps and FEMA Corps. So in the traditional Corps, you partner with local nonprofits to complete hands-on projects. In FEMA Corps, you go around the US to respond to disasters, including hurricanes, wildfires, and any other disaster that you can imagine. We've had a ton this year, so I'm sure we can think of a lot. If you've got a little more experience or you want to push yourself above and beyond, you can also apply to be a team leader and lead one of these teams. NCCC does have an upper age limit of 26 for members, but team leaders don't have an age limit. The last program is VISTA. This program is kind of a bit different from the rest of the programs. State and national, as well as NCCC programs, are designed to be very boots on the ground. Now, if you've ever heard the word boots on the ground, that kind of means like hands-on work, being in a community, and really being seen by the people around you. VISTA does a lot of the behind-the-scenes work. They serve in a mission to end poverty, and this happens in a variety of ways and places. Now, there are two ways to serve with VISTA. You can serve as a member or as a leader. To serve as a VISTA leader, you do have to have a year of prior service in any of the other national service programs. VISTA has no upper age limit, and it offers federal non-compete status, which is actually really neat. None of the other programs offer this, and it's a great opportunity to get into the federal government, or if you're trying to work with an organization like the Park Service, you get priority hiring, which I know can be a game changer for a lot of people. So there are some benefits to being an Americorps. The first is that you get money for education. Members who complete their required number of service hours receive up to $6,354 for their service. This money can be paid to any institution of higher learning for any kind of course. So that means that if you want to go to brew school and own your own brewery in a few years, you can use your education allowance for that. Or if you want to get a master's degree, finish your college education, you want to take a service learning trip through school, or you want to participate with NOLS, which is an outdoor education program, all of that can happen using your education allowance. You can also pay it to your federal loan servicer. This amount changes from year to year, and some programs offer more based on their grant funding. And this is based on the amount of time you serve. So if you don't serve a full service term, you get less money. All programs offer a living allowance while you're serving, but this varies greatly based on the program. The average living allowance is somewhere between $11,000 and $15,000. Some programs also provide housing. Again, this really varies and depends on your program. If you're looking for a certain amount of money or for housing, you'll need to make sure you're looking at the program you're applying for. It's helpful to know what you want or need out of a program when you go into it, because then you can narrow out the ones that aren't going to work for you at all. It's also helpful to note that where you serve is really going to make a difference for how far your living allowance will go. A $13,000 living allowance is going to get you a lot further in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, than it will in Portland, Oregon. Americorps service allows you to put your federal student loans in forbearance while you serve. Americorps will also pay off any interest that accrues on your federal student loans while you're completing your service term. Another benefit that many don't know about is that if you're planning to pursue a degree after you finish your Americorps. Many schools will waive application fees with your proof of service. Some will match your education award, and others have scholarship funds to support students that served an Americorps term. This often takes some digging to find, but can make a huge difference when trying to pay for higher education. And then lastly, while serving Americorps, you can also enroll in health insurance. There's a child care allowance, and you're able to take advantage of various professional development opportunities. These professional development opportunities vary by location, but all programs support member growth and learning. The next national service program we're going to talk about is the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps is well known, and you've probably met people who have served, but they're part of a national service network that helps support communities. Their corps is made up of change makers hoping to immerse themselves in a community abroad to work alongside local leaders. Their mission is to promote world peace by fulfilling 3 goals: to help people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women, to help promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of the people served, to help promote a better understanding of other people on the part of Americans. Peace Corps volunteers serve in 6 major sectors: agriculture, education, health, community economic development, environment, and youth and development. The Peace Corps currently has sites in over 60 countries all over the globe. The Peace Corps has a robust application process that should be completed early in the year before you wish to serve. So there are some benefits of the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps provides housing, a living stipend, and when you complete your service, you'll be awarded with $10,000 to help you transition back to life in the U.S. The student loan benefits of the Peace Corps are largely the same as Americorps. You are able to defer federal loans, you qualify for public service loan forgiveness, and you may be able to have your interest accrual paid off. The Peace Corps pays for transportation when you go to and leave from your country of service. You also accrue 2 paid vacation days per month of service, meaning you have the opportunity to travel in nearby countries as well as the one you serve. You are eligible for medical and dental visits during service, orientation, or on vacation in your country. This includes preventative care. If you have a health concern that cannot be treated where you are serving, you will be treated in a nearby location or the U.S., and you have no cost to get there. The Peace Corps has a robust career support network after you return from service, as well as a vibrant network of alumni to connect with after your return. Lastly, many graduate schools offer reduced tuition, assistantships, and stipends to Peace Corps alumni. There's also a fellowship program that Peace Corps alum are eligible for that participates with more than 90 universities. The next program we're going to talk about is Americorps Seniors. Now, just because this is a specific program doesn't mean that seniors can't do the traditional Americorps programs, except for MCCC because that has the age limit of 26. But Americorps Seniors allows for more flexibility, and it doesn't hold the time commitment of up to 1,700 hours of service in 11 months. So I'm just going to play this short video to give you a little bit more insight on what this program is.
Senior Corps is Americans age 55 plus, using their experience and wisdom to volunteer and make a difference in their communities as foster grandparent, senior companion, and RSVP volunteers. So what's the purpose of Senior Corps? Senior Corps is a way for Americans to use the skills and wisdom they have earned over their lifetimes to make their community stronger and make a difference for generations. Isn't that an amazing way to use a lifetime of experience to help others? So how does Senior Corps make a difference? Well, Americans across the country join Senior Corps each year, and all of them are tackling different problems in different ways. For example, volunteers who serve in Senior Corps' foster grandparent program tutor and mentor students. They provide one-on-one time to students in busy classrooms, help students increase their reading skills, tutor them in math and writing, and just be a mentor to them. Volunteers who serve in Senior Corps' Senior Companion program help elderly seniors stay independent and remain in their homes. They drive people to doctor's appointments, provide a much-needed break to caregivers and families, and provide friendship and companionship to the people they serve. Volunteers who serve in Senior Corps' RSVP program volunteer with organizations like the Red Cross, Meals on Wheels, and Habitat for Humanity to help their communities in countless ways. They help veterans find jobs, organize volunteers, rebuild after disasters, provide free tax services, tackle environmental issues, and mentor and tutor students. Learn more about Senior Corps at seniorcorps.gov.
next program I'm going to talk about is the Student Conservation Association, or the SCA. So the SCA's mission is to build the next generation of conservation leaders and inspire lifelong stewardship of the environment. This is the program that I said is really focused on environmental stewardship. Some things SCA interns do are protect, enhance, and restore national parks, marine sanctuaries, cultural landmarks, and urban green spaces across the United States. They live and work in amazing places. They make new friends and join a community of conservation-minded individuals, explore career options and make career connections, receive professional trainings and certifications, and serve the planet and make an impact. SCA is the largest conservation partner of the Americorps. This means that not only are you doing work that is directly related to creating sustainable global community, but you are also receiving many of the benefits that Americorps members do. The education award you receive is the same, but the other benefits vary by location. Although SCA is the most focused on sustainability, they are also the most variable when it comes to age. Many of their programs are youth-based, meaning that they cater to young adults, not yet 18. Others require you to be 21, but many SCA members are pretty young. This is very different from both Peace Corps and traditional Americorps, as they have a lot of age variation. So I'm talking about a lot of great opportunities, but you're probably wondering, can I still serve? Because there's a global pandemic. And the answer to that definitely varies based on the program. Americorps programs and SCA are still running. Many of them are relying on remote work if possible and making safety changes based on the current situation, such as making their crews smaller or restricting the amount of the place that you can be from if you're joining a crew. My husband just finished his third Americorps term in August after serving remotely since March. He joined his workplace as a full-time staff member after his Americorps graduation and watched a new class of Americorps members join in September with their service definitions adjusted to be remote, likely for the entirety of their service. All positions are different, and many are still doing that boots on the ground work that we talked about before, just in a safe way. The Peace Corps currently has no volunteers in any of its partner countries due to the pandemic. However, they are accepting applications and making plans to get service members back in the places they are needed. There are currently positions open where the departure is planned for early to mid-2021. My best advice for navigating a search for a service term this year is that you need to make sure that you are asking questions about COVID safety procedures during your interview, and that the organization's plans for the position and actions regarding the virus are aligned with what you feel comfortable with. For example, in a hunger relief position, you're likely going to be on the front lines and you'll be working with people who may have been exposed. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, then that position definitely isn't for you right now. And there are definitely positions that are taking different actions. It really depends on the position. Like if you're in a school district, and the school district is virtual, then you're probably going to be doing a lot of virtual work. But if you're serving with hunger relief, you can't really hand out meals through a computer screen. So I'm going to actually talk now about my service story and about why national service meant so much to me and how I really found my place when it came to environmental stewardship and the program that I was in and the community that I was serving. So I was graduating from college in the spring of 2021. I was in Pennsylvania, and I had a summer plan, and I was looking for a job almost 6 months before I needed one, which I don't know if you've been looking for jobs lately, but that's kind of hard to do sometimes. But I knew I wanted to do national service, and I had known some people who did the SCA programs, and I was really excited about them, and I kind of had a dream of being with the National Park Service, so the SCA would have been a really great opportunity to kind of get there. But I was kind of waiting for the applications that I wanted to come open, and the timing didn't really work out great for me. So I saw that Americorps had a lot of environmental stewardship opportunities as well, and I found one of those programs with a very similar mission to what the SCA does, and I applied for it. And it turns out that that was the position that I got selected for, and that's where I did my service. So I was accepted into a program called Green Iowa Americorps. I'll probably call them GIA from here on out. And when I was accepted, I had to contend with the fact that I had only ever lived 5 hours from home before, and Iowa was a lot further than that. And so I embarked on this adventure to a rural small town in Iowa called Decorah to work with a team of committed people who believed that we could do better for our planet. The mission of the organization was simple: helping make Iowans more energy efficient through low-impact home weatherization, energy education, and community outreach. And so we got trained and we got to work. And we did tons of work. There were 4 of us there all year, and we each completed more than 1,700 hours of service in 11 months. We also had 2 more members join us in the summer who each served more than 300 hours. Sometimes we worked together at energy audits and big events, and other times we worked on our own or in pairs, spending hours at a food pantry, pulling invasive species, or volunteering at the local heritage farm. Our host organization, a local nonprofit, was a huge proponent of creating not only energy and environmental sustainability in their community, but also facilitating the growth of community in their town. The photos on this slide show each of us growing outside of our comfort zones. We didn't all love the education aspect of the position. We didn't all want to be outside in negative 2-degree wind chill. We didn't all excel at the mathematics required to complete an energy assessment, but we all did it. This was one of the most rewarding years of my life. I grew so much. I learned about things I had never known I would. Have you ever imagined that you'd learn how to depressurize a house and find where it needed insulation? I sure didn't think I would know that, but now I do. I worked with a group of people who were wildly different from me during my service year, and even though we all had amazingly different communication styles, we all learned to communicate effectively across our different needs. Completing this service year helped me be more successful in my endeavors afterwards, and it also helped the people that I served with. Plus, we had a direct and measurable impact on our local community. So in my year with GIA, I worked with several different organizations. This slide is only a few. The amazing thing is that when you ask, what can I do for you, and are able to clearly explain the mission of your organization, you can create some really amazing partnerships. With a mission as broad as creating sustainable community, you can do a lot of different things. I created programs for a variety of aged kids for libraries, worked with preschools to explain how different kinds of light bulbs use energy, and with parks and recreation programs to get kids outside in the winter, which, let me tell you, if you haven't spent much time in Iowa, the winter is cold, very cold. We also worked with Seed Savers Exchange to plant, harvest, and save heritage seeds, with the local energy districts to connect with communities and complete home energy assessments. We cared for a local plot of native prairie and helped kids learn about the outdoors at summer camps. We did community art projects at the local art studio and taught kids about the joys of upcycling. We partnered with the Food and Fitness Initiative to walk youth to school 3 times a week, supporting energy efficiency with less busing. We led cooking classes for youth at the local food co-op and taught about the importance of local sustainable food. We handed out local foods at the community food pantry. All of this work was important. All of this work fed our mission and supported our town, and it was done on hardly any budget at all. Our positions were grant funded, and our organization had grants for our energy assessment materials, which meant that we were able to provide them for free for our clients, as well as not have to pay for them through our organization. And all of our education and outreach work, which we spent probably half of our hours a month doing, was budgeted, spending less than $150 a month. Now, let's talk about how you can get things done. This section of the presentation is all about hands-on work. How do you, on a shoestring budget, create amazing sustainability and energy efficiency programming? The next few slides are some examples, and then you'll have the opportunity of brainstorming your own ideas. You can teach composting. Vermicomposting is very cool and pretty cheap. You need some tub, some vermi, which are worms. They're red worms, specifically. Do some research before you just buy some random worms, and some dirt. Then you just collect your scraps and teach the kids about how your trash makes food for these amazing creatures. The team before us built this really cool portable light board that you see here. It compares the energy usage of 3 different light bulbs via kilowatt meter. This whole thing probably cost less than $100 to build, and it was amazing to use. Both kids and adults learned from this, and it'll be around for a long time. Plus, we have a lot of extra light bulbs hanging out, so those are pretty easy to attain for us as well. We created a trash game. We collected some trash with us, literally trash from my apartment, and used it to teach kids specifically about what was recyclable, what is compostable, and what stuff needs to go to the landfill. Just some advice, I would probably try to print out pictures of the compost unless you're bringing a vermicompost with you, because traveling with your actual compost and throwing it into a bin is kind of gross. But I mean, otherwise, like, literally spent no money on this program. We weatherized an old box. This was an old light bulb box from our massive amount of light bulbs we got, and we used leftover pieces from our actual weatherizations to fix some of the problems. Bonus, you can have the kids make their own houses, so you don't even have to commit a lot of time to that. Okay, and then lastly, this one is a little bit more in depth, and also there's some background noise in the video, and I apologize for that. But we used some cotton candy, some thin paper, and some water to show what the formation of a cave is like.
What's happening? I don't see what's happening.
It's because you're on the wrong side. Go to the other side for me.
Great. Now it's my turn.
Yep. Now maybe squirt it kind of that way, at an angle. Yeah, there you go.
Whoa. Is it dissolving the cotton candy?
It is dissolving the cotton candy. We're going to design our own programs. So I have 3 major steps to designing your own effective programs, and I'm going to kind of go through some really helpful guiding questions that I've used a lot when creating programs. So the first thing is, what is your mission? Either you have a mission as an organization or as a person, and you need to make sure you know what that is, because you can't serve that mission without understanding it completely. And then the second question is, who are you collaborating with? What is their mission? Because another person or organization is also going to have a mission, and again, you really need to be true to what your mission is. Otherwise, your organization is kind of going to fall apart. So the third question is, where do these missions intersect? These missions kind of need to intersect to have successful programming working together. They don't need to intersect, like your Venn diagram doesn't need to be real big, but it should exist. So the second set of questions is program-based questions. What kind of programs do my partner organization need? Like, your partner organization might need a super specific program, and so you should know that. Or they might be looking for, well, what can you offer me? Is there any way that, like, you can kind of be on your own and create this and just show up with it? And understanding what kind of program that is going to be really helpful to designing your program. So the second question is, what programs do I already have? Sometimes it's really easy to get really bogged down in, oh my gosh, I need a totally new program for every organization I work with, and that's not true. Every time you work with an organization, you should consider that unless you've signed contracts with them or they've paid you for your work, you can probably reuse a lot of the same ideas or programs that you've already used before. And that really sometimes cuts down on your time and effort, as well as helps get the same message out. If you're consistent, people are going to start to know that you're a consistent organization or person. And then lastly, does this program fit into my organization's mission? So because you've created this whole like brainstorm excited program idea, after you've walked away from your meeting with your partner organization and you're reflecting on it, you need to really make sure that this does fit, that you didn't snowball out of kind of where your organization's mission exists. So now it's time to design your program. So these are some really important questions that you can ask yourself to kind of get an idea of what you need for your program. So the first one is, what is the goal of your program? What are you hoping that the people who you are presenting it to are getting out of it? What supplies do you need? Okay, this seems like a really basic question, but the number of times that I've been preparing to leave for a program and then realizing that I don't have all my supplies is super inconvenient. You should definitely write a list, because this is super helpful, especially if you're working with somebody else and you think that they might be bringing some of your supplies. If you both have lists and it's labeled as to who's supposed to bring what, that's really helpful as well. Where will your event or program take place? Is your event or do you need to reserve your space? Is the space big enough? Does the space have fees? Are you hosting it at your organization's place? Are you hosting it at your partner organization's place? There are a lot of logistics there that need to be taken care of. Probably one of the first things you need to do, because you really want to make sure that you have the appropriate location. How long do you need to plan for this program? So obviously every program takes a different amount of time to plan for. And so you can kind of brainstorm out how long you think that like each section is going to take. I would say that if your program is supposed to be an hour long, I would budget at least 2 or 3 hours of work to put into it, if not more, depending on how involved your program is. How long should each section of your program take? So I like to break my programs into sections or sessions. It kind of depends on what kind of group I'm working with. Especially if I'm working with kids, it's easier before COVID to kind of rotate them between groups if you have more than like 5, just because sometimes 12 kids are really hard to handle like for one person. But if you have 3 people there and you've got 2 groups and a floater, it's really helpful. So how long should each of those sections take, and what are you doing? Or do you want to set it up like that? Do you think there's a better way to effectively put together your program? This one's special for this year and maybe for the future. But what COVID safety measures are you going to take? Are there requirements that the state is requiring? Is this a virtual program? Are you requiring masks? Is your space big enough? Again, I think the space big enough is really important this year, because you want to make sure that you can get everyone at their safe 6-foot distance. There are a lot of state mandates. Does your program fall into any of the things that you need to consider when it comes to that? What is your budget for this program? If you have to spend money on it, are you charging for the program? Does your organization or partner organization allow this? So first of all, it's really important to think about how much you can spend on this program. Sometimes that's nothing. Sometimes you can spend enough money to use a little printer ink to print out a handout. Sometimes you have to spend money on your program, and in return, you have to charge for it. Now, I found that sometimes if your partner organization allows it, charging a pay what you can is really useful, because a lot of people are willing to kind of donate to your organization for the program, but don't necessarily want to pay a set amount. And some people will be kind of stingy and other people will be very generous. And I think it really balances out. Another question to ask is, does your organization or your partner organization allow this? So working with nonprofits, you have to make sure that, especially with nonprofits, but with all organizations, you should make sure that your organizations allow money to come in for a program. That's going to depend on a lot of things, and that's really important to check in on. Do you need to practice before you present your program? So in the world of virtual presenting, you can edit your presentation a million times, or you can practice a bunch and not ever leave your house. But sometimes you need to be out in the community and practicing. And do you need to do this? What do you need to plan for this? Do you need help? Are you working with somebody? What is the timeline for creating it? If you're working with somebody, I always think it's very good to sit down and kind of talk about what your expectations are, so that you're both on the same page, and set a deadline for each section that you're supposed to work on, and make sure that you're all coming together at the same time. Otherwise, it's going to be like one of those awful high school projects where you're like, oh my gosh, so-and-so didn't hold up their part of the bargain. And even though in this kind of work you're usually not getting graded on it, it is still really inconvenient when you don't have those expectations set ahead of time. Does your partner organization need to review your program? If so, how long do they need? So make sure your partner organization doesn't if they need to approve your program before you run it, make sure you give them enough time. That's just a really good courtesy, is making sure that they have enough time to review your program and make sure that they approve of it. Are you effectively advertising or promoting your program? So unless your program already has built-in people, like you're going to an after-school event or classroom, You need to make sure that people know about your program, otherwise nobody's going to come to it. There's some really great advertising techniques out there. There's always Facebook, Instagram, there's the newspaper, there's signs in local shops. There's all sorts of ways to advertise, but you need to make sure that you remember that, because if you forget, then just nobody's going to be there. And lastly, do you have a deadline where you're going to cancel the program? So sometimes, even though you do all this hard work, the program just doesn't run. And sometimes it's better to cancel a program than to have a really bad one. So if you don't have like the required number of attendance, or if you, with this year with COVID, if something drastically takes a turn in your community, you should have a plan for canceling it and for getting the word out that you've canceled, so that you can be accountable to the community. Okay, so when you're designing your own, sometimes you need a little help. So I really love lesson plan outlines. And so what I've got here is one of my favorites. I made this. It's literally just a Google sheet with a table inserted in it. So I've got my lesson name and my description. I've got the objectives, which are the goals that I want to get out of it. And then I've got a place for my outline. I like to put my materials and any handouts that I need, total time needed, and then what requirements, if any, met. So for example, if I were doing a lesson plan for a school, I would definitely try to put in what requirements I met out of their curriculum. This is another really great kind of lesson planning sheet. So this is really similar. This one kind of leads you to ask the question about how does this relate to your mission and how does it relate to your partner organization's mission, which is also really helpful. And then the time allotted and time met is definitely gives you the opportunity to practice it, to fill out that box. If you don't practice it, you don't know how much time it actually took. Okay, so we talked about all this, but what about your organization? What if your organization doesn't have a sustainability mission? That's okay. Dictionary.com defines sustainability as the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level, the sustainability of economic growth, or avoidance of the depletion of natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance, the pursuit of global environmental sustainability. You have to look at your organization's mission to be really effective about this. I'm going to give you an example here that I made up, and I'll make sure that this is typed out in a place where you can access it afterwards. I'm going to use a local library and then talk about how, if I worked for the library, I might be able to make this work. So let's say the library's mission is the public library is an all-encompassing resource center providing materials and programs for the leisure, entertainment, and the lifelong learning of citizens of the town and the county. The library capitalizes on opportunities to develop and provide innovative services to the public. Now, in this, I see innovative services as part of the mission, and that's kind of what I'm going to latch on to about applying sustainability to it. So let's say that I am able to put on one after-school program a month, and that's kind of my idea of innovative service. So if that's my idea, then here I go. Let's say we're still in COVID times, so I can have 10 kids in my space do the local COVID guidelines. I need to have a social distance activity where there are a few commonly touched objects. I'm planning my session for January, and it's October right now, so as we know, a lot can change in that space of time. We're hoping that we'll still be able to have this program. I've decided that I will wait until 1 week before my after-school session to cancel. I'm requiring registration, and space is limited. Masks for the youth are required. Parents will not be allowed to stay. They can pick up afterwards, as we want as few people interacting as possible. We will also be doing temperature checks. Parents will get a text or email from me confirming that we will still be meeting for this after-school session. And I will be paying attention to local infection rates as well as what the schools and daycares are doing. Now, all of this is something that you don't really need to pay a ton of attention to in normal years, but I think it's really important when you're putting on especially youth programs that you're very clearly talking about the safety of the youth and how you're going to apply that in your programming. So now that I've got my basics outlined, it's time to think about my activity. Since I don't want the youth using commonly touched objects, I think I'll do a modified version of my favorite recycling game. I have 3 bins: recycling, compost, and landfill. The youth will vote with their feet, which will be moving from one side of the room to the other, and they'll be staying in appropriately spaced dots placed on the floor where they think the object I'm holding up will go. So let's say I hold up a milk carton, and they can tell me whether they think that's going to be compostable, recyclable, or go to the landfill. After some of the objects, I think I'll ask questions like, why do you think that? So like, if you think the milk carton is compostable, then maybe I'll ask why. Are you surprised you can compost this item? For example, if I have a coffee filter, that might not seem compostable, but it is. And so that would be something to ask. Like, are you surprised? And can you think of ways that we can have less in our landfill pile? Now, I would probably ask this at the end of the thing where I had a big landfill pile, and I'd be like, hey, what can we do to make this better? Since my program is an hour long, this game that we just described with the compost probably only takes 30 minutes. I'm gonna need a second activity. So I think that we can probably pretty safely read a book. So I'm gonna hold and read the book. I'll pick one about sustainability. My go-to is the Lorax. Let's say I'm gonna read that. I have some pipe cleaners that I can collect some old newspapers and let them sit out for a couple weeks without being touched. And then we can make small bouquets of truffle trees. So basically some upcycling as an activity. The kids don't really need to share any sort of supplies to make truffle trees. I mean, I don't know if you've ever read the Lorax, but the truffle trees are pretty crazy anyway. So you can just rip things and wrap the pipe cleaners around them, and it makes a great truffle tree. And that's your program. Although we didn't have any sustainability in our mission, we did have the innovative services, and this program was innovated. You were able to find a way to play a game, read a story, and do a craft while following local COVID procedures and relating the topic to sustainability. So just because your organization doesn't have sustainability in its mission and it's not focused on sustainability doesn't mean that you can't find ways to put sustainability into what you're doing. So we talked about your organization. Now, what if my organization is sustainability focused and I want to create a great partnership? I would start by having a meeting. I like to sit down face to face. Obviously right now that's not the best option, but Zoom exists and I would say use it. I like to start by giving some examples of what I typically do, just so that they understand kind of some of the programs and activities that I've done in the past. And then I ask what they need help with, finding out if there's a solution to any of their needs that I already have something for, because sometimes you don't even know what they need. And then just also being okay with not being able to work with everyone. Sometimes it's just not the right fit with the timing or the person or the organization, and that's okay. You can always circle back in the future. Just make sure not to burn that bridge, because you never know when you can circle back. And then don't be afraid to set boundaries when creating a partnership, especially if it's about your organization's mission. So like I said before, sometimes you can get really, really excited about a program, and you can come back and look at it and think, I'm not actually sure that this fits in the mission that I was trying to bring about. And if that's the case, then either try to modify what you've done and run it by the partner organization, or say, I'm really sorry, but this isn't gonna work out right now. I'd like to try to find a way to work together in the future. Those boundaries are really important, and you have to make sure that, like, when you're working with an organization, they know where that line is. Okay, so there was a lot in that section, and I think we might have went through it kind of quickly, but it's also like the most important section of this whole presentation. So I actually put together a web page with all of these resources plus some that you can visit at any time. It is password protected, so you'll need to use the password CortlandRec 2020. And this page will definitely be a great resource for some of these things that we talked about. So I just talked about national service and programming, which are two of my absolute favorite things. And you're probably wondering, so what? The answer is that this year has been rough on all of us. We've lost jobs, we've lost family and friends, we've lost our sense of community. Our way of life has changed beyond what we could have imagined. We are doing virtual conferences instead of in-person gatherings. We are focused on keeping ourselves and others safe from a deadly disease. And I don't know about you, but I felt more lost this year than I ever have. I keep searching for meaning, and I find that meaning reflected in the service work that I did years ago. Not only that, but we gathered in this virtual space to talk about what we can do to make the world a better, more sustainable place. The work done with Americorps supports those around us. It's selfless, and that's the work that we need to do to save our planet. Selfless work. The climate crisis and the need for sustainability isn't about you or me. It's about our national and global community. Doing the environmental stewardship work that national service programs that we talked about supports is a place to start when all feels lost. It's a place to find where we are needed or where we fit. It's a place that gives us the opportunity to expand our definitions of sustainability. It gives us the opportunity to learn how to support community in becoming more than just environmentally sustainable, but also economically sustainable and powerful. And most importantly, we need to engage in communities both big and small to make the difference. Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And that is why we need to do this work. I know that I can continue to serve the communities around me and build a better place with the skills and knowledge that I learned from my year with GIA. And that's why I think national service can lead to the creation of successful and sustainable communities. So thanks. Normally this is a time where I would stop and ask for questions, but since you're just listening to a recording of this presentation, I really do encourage you to reach out to continue the conversation. I am happy to hear from anyone who came to this presentation and would love to talk more about national service or programming. This was such an awesome opportunity for me to be here, and I really appreciate everyone who came out to listen to this today. You can get in touch. This QR code, if you scan it, will take you to my digital business card. And you can always send an email to me at aalookenhouse@gmail.com if you can't scan this code. And just for fun, a special thanks to all the people who create Slides Carnival slides, because these are really awesome slides. They kind of spice up the presentation, and I really appreciate the fact that they are free.